Up with Giants TV is live, and we've got a special guest tonight. Have you ever wondered how to find the courage to live authentically? We got a show for you. Hey, Giants, welcome back to Wake Up with Giants TV. We're going to have a special guest tonight who's going to blow our minds with awesomeness and authenticity. And before we do that, if you're not following us on the Tribe of Giants on Facebook, go do that. It's an amazing tribe. It's a global community of people supporting each other in their Giants journey. And if you're not following us on YouTube, go subscribe, share with your friends, share these videos. I think we have over 200 videos on YouTube currently. And so go make sure that you're listening to the Giant tips and tricks and interviews that are all over that. So, Ryan, do you want to introduce our guest?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. This is what, episode 81?
81.
81 Giants that we've interviewed. And there's been some that I've known personally, and a lot. Well, I think almost every single one of them, we've formed a bond and a friendship, but this one is extra special to me. This is Cassity Norris, and she is a friend of mine. We met through work, and I watched her journey as I got to meet her and get to know who she is as a person. I fell in love with her heart and just how genuinely kind and amazing of a person that she is. And she's been through a journey. I got to watch her over the last few years do a bunch of Facebook Lives. We talked about this just before the show, and hopefully I don't get emotional. I'm trying to hold it in.
Hold like Braveheart almost.
Yeah. But I watched her have the courage to tell her story and to live from her heart and to find the courage to share it, and not just to she felt guilty or something to just tell everybody about her life. It was for her. It was for her growth. She needed to tell her story and heal and grow. And I have seen, oh my gosh, the energy level and the aura that is around Cassity versus even back then when I saw her as a Giant to now, it's unbelievable. I wish you guys could see that entire journey, and I encourage you as you get to know her and follow her, that you go back and watch some of her videos that she's done and see that transformation, because you are absolutely beaming. And so is it all right if was that I didn't go through your bio too much?
Oh, that was perfection, and I'm holding back the tears.
We want to dive way deep into your story. And we talked before, and you said that's okay. And I wasn't going to ask if that was okay before, because you had put a lot of it out publicly. But is that okay if we dive deep into your journey?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, take us back to the beginning. Let's go back. I'll start it off, Nick. Let's dive way back into childhood. Tell us where Cassity, where'd you come from? Where tell us about your childhood and growing up.
So I was raised in Orem, Utah. I was raised in a family that was pretty religious, and my childhood was pretty rough. I felt like I had to hide a lot of the parts of myself, and I ended up fitting this mold that all these people around me wanted to see. And I ended up losing myself because of this. My childhood had beautiful moments, but it definitely I was in a household where you weren't allowed to talk about your emotions. You had to follow things by the book. You didn't need to have the explanations as to why, or a conversation as to why things were the way they were, but it was just the hard yeses and nos, do as I say. And so I didn't ever really get to explore my heart or explore myself or find who I was. I just had to fit this mold that I felt pressure to put into. And because of this, later on in my adulthood, it started to come up in different shadows. And I started to recognize that I was in this downward spiral that was really dark, really fast. And I wanted the pain that I was experiencing to just stop. And that's what ended up bringing me to this beautiful healing journey that you've got to witness throughout my Facebook Lives, and really just finding my way back to my heart and learning how to express that and to live it.
Do you mind going into like the shadows that you talk about, the things that were there, the things that caused the pain and the grief and the heartache and maybe the internal battle that you were fighting? You're trying to fit into this mold of, and I know the mold because it's very prevalent here in Utah. That it's a very religious state, for the most part, and so there's this external pressure or judgment of like, you don't do XYZ, that you're a bad person, or that, I mean, it's sometimes it's not said, sometimes it is said, sometimes it's shown, right?
Yes.
Dive into that for us a little bit of what those struggles were for you. You don't have to get into too deep into the religious philosophy of sort, but maybe some of the things that were happening, and then what happened because of those things and the spiral that you were going down.
So where I want to start with this is in junior high is when I kind of started recognizing this conflict within myself. I started having friends and relationships and being able to experience social life. And I would come home to my home life and I would want to open these conversations with my parents about, certain questions around marijuana or dating boys or things like this. And when I would attempt to do these conversations, I would always get shut down with a hard line really quickly about, we don't go there, we don't talk about this, we don't even have a conversation. And so that shadow really built in with me, where I started to, instead of like have this wonder and this curiosity about life, I started to just completely shut down. And then I would look for love in places that I thought I could get it, because I wasn't getting it at home. I didn't feel loved at home. So I started to look for love in any situation that I could find it outside of myself. This had to do with my relationship with boys. It had to do with how I showed up with my friends. I was really easily peer pressured into things because I felt like I had to prove my worth. I felt like I was unworthy unless I did these things that all these people outside of me approved of. Whether it was, in the moment, if I needed to fit the mold of what my parents wanted to see, or then I'd go to school and I'd fit the mold of what my friends wanted to see. So that really started to create these shadows of myself, because I was not connected to my heart. I was more trying to fit what I thought others wanted me to be, if that makes sense.
Oh, like, yeah, I'm just put on the screen who related to this.
Right. Ryan's got, you're good. I got you.
This guy.
You think of this though, like you're going down like this path of pleasing all these different parties. And so you're hiding things in different areas depending on who you're with, right? So you might be religious in one sense, you might be a partier in another sense. So no clear identity. Is that accurate?
100%, yeah.
Yeah. And how did that impact you? Like what came next down your path there? Like what was impactful? And I can rephrase that too.
Yeah, if you would.
Yeah. So you're going down this path, you're trying to identify like what you want to do in your life. I mean, did you have a clear idea that where you're at today would be what you're doing today?
Oh, I did not. Definitely not. Yeah.
Okay. So let's kind of close the gap on that journey of what led you from that shadow side, go into that a little bit to where you are today.
Okay. So the big defining moment of pulling me out of my shadows and starting to make me conscious of all these parts of myself that I had been rejecting.
Yeah.
Was the death of my daughter.
Okay.
And once she passed away, I found myself having the questions of, what is this life about? Why am I here? In the deepest depression I had ever been in, was having suicidal thoughts, turned to pills to try to comfort my pain that I was feeling, just to get by for the next day. And in the middle of all this, really deep depression and severe pill addiction, I came to a point in my life where I recognized I was going to lose everything I had ever worked for. I was going to lose my relationship with my husband. I was going to lose my home, and I was headed in a place that I didn't want to go. And so I had to have this really hard look at myself as to, do I want to continue to go down this road because I can see where it's leading and it's not pretty, or am I going to make a change? And in this moment, that's when I realized I had to get really painfully real with myself. And that started out with giving a voice to the shadows that I was experiencing, specifically in that moment, my pill addiction that I was experiencing. And as soon as I was able to give that a voice and to start sharing that with my loved ones, that's really when the transformation started to happen for me.
Can we hang on that for a minute?
Of course,
Giving
yeah.
a voice to the shadows. So can you tell a little bit of how that impacted things? Like, what did that do for you?
Oh my God, there was such a freedom in it. Like, I remember being absolutely terrified. Like,
Yeah.
I had worked so hard to hide this from everyone. Like, my husband didn't even he had no idea that this was even happening.
Hmm.
And so I remember going to my father. My dad was the first one that I took this to. And I just remember saying, Dad, I haven't been coming around. There's a reason as to why I haven't been coming around. And I'm actually really struggling in this addiction. And his reaction in that moment, honestly, was, I think, what allowed me to continue to open up, because he just said, it's okay, honey. We all have our things, and I'm here for you.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And that was so opposite of like what I had played out in my head. In my head, I thought he was going to be angry. He was going to be disappointed. And so to be met with such a gentle understanding and love, it was like everything my heart needed in that moment. And from there on, I just kind of felt like, okay, let's share this with the world. Let's get this out because this feels good. It feels good to get this guilt and shame off of my chest.
You know what's interesting about that too, and sorry to cut you off. Hold your thought if you were moving on. But I started to write a post today. I shaved my head, okay, and I thought about change and our identity, and how, like, for women and a lot of guys, your hair is part of your identity, right? And so if you're starting to lose it or you shave it off, that can be a big thing. Or you have cancer or something like that, your hair's falling out, that really kind of messes with your identity. And I had this identity built up about as a child. I had really long, really thick, dark black hair, like brown and dark, but I mean it was so dark brown that it was like black. My dad would call me, I played baseball, so my dad would call me Hank Aaron, right? Like baseball. And he started calling me Handsome Hank. And he would tell me, like, hey, because of your personality and you're a good looking kid and you got this great hair and you can throw the baseball, you're Handsome Hank. So that kind of stuck for a long time. And so I had this identity. Well, as I started getting older and I don't know if my hairline was receding or running the other direction, but it was moving in a quick pace backwards. And I was like, well, I'm not Handsome Hank anymore if I don't have my hair.
Hairless Hank.
Hairless Hank. I think of a hairless cat. Like, I'm like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
Right? I started to build up all of these thoughts and these fears about what people would think if I shaved my head. Just baked it, or gone.
Yeah.
And being young, a little bit younger, and going, oh man, this kind of stinks. I don't have the hair that I once had, and it doesn't look as good going to church or to on dates or whatever. I had these fears that people would judge me based on how I looked, and it's a real thing. Like, I know that sounds silly and stupid, but I one day I got up enough courage, just right down the middle. Backwards skunk stripe, just right down the center. There's no turning back from that point, right? Once you hit that live button and you start to tell people or go to dad, right? What an amazing dad, by the way. The best line ever, like, perfect. But I did that, shaved the head, went to work the next day, sat in my car for a little while going, okay, what are they going to say? What are they going to do? They're going to laugh, this, that. I walked in there and nobody said a flippin' thing. Like I built up all this huge, like, like they're going to laugh. They're going to judge me. They're going to say, you're not like, dude, you look like an idiot. And they didn't care. Nothing. It was actually like some of them, most of them would be like, dude, oh, you shaved your head. That's freaking rad. Look at my haircut. I got the same thing going on. It was like support, right? The exact opposite of what I thought was going to happen. I know that's long-winded, with what you had going on, but that hit really hard that we build up all of these scenarios behind judgment and fear. But yet once we get the courage to just be authentic and to let it out, what happened with your dad generally happens.
Yes.
It's interesting.
Very. So what switch did that flip for you experiencing that?
Now the interviewer becomes the interviewee.
Yeah, that was unexpected. Hey, this is our show.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We don't want to talk about our problems.
That's funny.
Wow. I don't, there was like I don't know where the courage came from. I just was like, I just wanted to be me, and I thought, and this still happens. I still feel these things a lot. The people that are in our tribe could probably attest to my posts. I feel this deep, trying to find who is Ryan Morris, who is Ryan the Lion, right? The guy that I've worn masks, and hid behind some of them for a long time. And I finally got that courage just built up, and I just said, you know what? If they're not going to be okay with me, then I have to be okay without them.
I love that.
And so I did it. And nothing. They're busy with their own crap in their lives, right? Everybody's got a ton of shit going on, And so they're like, oh yeah, well, they're just like me. They got a bunch of crap.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to the club.
So
love
Cass,
you even more.
I want to dive into that a little bit more, because it's like Brene Brown talks about the killer of shame is vulnerability, right? Really opening up. And so you have this environment where it could feel really shameful to be addicted to something. And it's understandable. There's a lot of justification and story going into why you would be addicted to something. And then going into the story in addition to what people might think about you if they just knew, which keeps you stuck, right? It just keeps you in that cycle. And then to go and open up and find out, wow, I actually have support on the other side of that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
It really played into the courage that Ryan was talking about, of being brave enough to get into the spot of you being like, this is who I am, and the boldness of this is who I am, and getting in that secure space of understanding that anyone that is around you that can't see the light that you are, the love that you are, they're not meant to be in your group. They're not meant to be around you. And having the confidence to really be able to press forward, knowing with everything that is inside of you that at the end of the day, your relationship with yourself is really where the power comes through. And for me, every time that I stepped into this vulnerability, no matter how scary it was, no matter what story I was telling myself about why I didn't want to go there, even in those moments that I didn't want to go there, but I forced myself to go there, this growth and this expansion and my heart opening up was just so powerful. You couldn't deny it.
You got 2 amens.
Thank y'all.
We start tallying.
Yeah. That's a 2 amen. That's like 2 thumbs up.
80 amen so far. So yeah. So from there, you start to open up about it, and tell me kind of where it went from there. So you start sharing with your father, and then where did you go from there? Did you go to rehab? Like what was kind of the process for turning your life? I don't know if it's like turning it around, but getting aligned with where you are today. Does that make sense?
Yes,
definitely. That point in that book where you got to step down, your that pathway that, it's being conscious and aware. And like you've stepped down that path, and now there's this part in the book, it's behind Nick actually, where Rit, he's standing there and he's got to make a decision of where, if he's going to go down this path, and just for a little bit that fear and doubt sets in. That's kind of where I see you at right there, is like, okay, I'm going to go down this path. Now what's on the other side of this?
Yeah. So I think the keys of like getting me to where I was able to start moving forward down the path of like following my heart and being in my authenticity is I had to look at all the reasons why I had ended up where I was. So anything that I had been kind of ignoring that wasn't in alignment with me, I had to start bringing my awareness to these things. So like my career wasn't making me happy. It wasn't in alignment with my heart or who I was. That was something that shifted for me immensely. My friends and things like that as well. But what really, like the tools that I started to use to help me to move through this, meditation was definitely one of the biggest ones. It allowed me the space to just be, right? And in this busy world of go, 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 do, we forget to just be. And so meditation helped me to just connect back in with myself. I felt a pull to start taking a class that taught me how to trust my intuition, because all throughout my life I had been taught, don't trust myself, don't trust where I'm guided or my inner compass, but trust everything outside of me to lead me. So I started to take this course that taught me how to get in touch with my intuition so I could start to trust myself again. And that was a huge opener for where I was led down this road of becoming an authenticity coach and a healer, and really healing myself in a lot of ways. So
yeah, I want to kind of close the pathway between where you started. So you go back to childhood, and you didn't have a voice. Like it was like you don't question these things. You don't trust your intuition. We put that over here. And so you go from that space of feeling really like closed off. Your daughter passes away, and maybe we can talk about that experience as well. If we can go into that, are you okay doing that?
Yeah.
Okay. And so you have these experiences that draw you down a dark, shadowy path where you're just feeling like nothing's moving. I want to end it. I don't know if I can do this. You do what most people would do. I think most people have some form of coping mechanism that they go to, and whether it's drugs or sex or Facebook or whatever it is, like we have something that we just go into 100% so we can numb it out. And then we feel ashamed, and we get in that spiral, and we get stuck, and we feel really small. And so like where you're starting on your journey is that space of recognizing, look, there's got to be more. And this is what I love, is you had this moment of, I've got to do something, because if I don't, it's going to turn out pretty bad. And so that, like my book, is like when Rit looks up at the sky, he sees the giants for the first time. He has this awakening moment where he's like, there's got to be more than this. And then you step out onto this path. And so it's similar, like everybody has different start points. And your start point might have been when you woke up to that something needs to change. Like things got so dark and so down that something needed to change. And you might feel giant in one area and then go backward and feel small again in another area, just because it's totally new. You have no experience there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to talk about kind of going into, I kind of want to go back into the darkness a little bit with you.
Okay.
Like when you're in those dark moments and you're dealing and you're coping with it, right? Can you talk about how, because we don't do things unless we feel like they serve us.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about how the coping felt like it was serving you, and maybe talk about how you were able to step into a space of awakening to that needed to change? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So my coping, you're talking about as like far as like mechanisms of maybe perhaps you turn to food or you turn to TV or social media.
Yeah.
And my coping mechanisms were just not working. Like in the moment, it felt really good. In the moment, I would get a release. In the moment, I would get a high, no matter what. And I had multiples. Like the pills weren't just one. I was doing anything I could do to just kind of temporarily give me that high.
Yeah.
And it all comes down to really like your habits and your practices, because when we're in those dark spaces of ourselves and we're struggling, the one thing that we can always fall back onto is our practices, our rituals, and our habits. And so with that, I went from these like temporary things of numbing out with like TV or food or sex or drugs. And I replaced them with new practices of where I was like, okay, if everything else falls apart in my life, I'm going to go back to what I know best that's going to help me. And that is my rituals. That is my daily practices. That is connecting in with myself. That is journaling. That is meditation. That is walking in nature. That is exercising, things like that. So did that answer your question?
Oh yeah, that was beautiful.
Okay.
In fact, when I was going through, so I got divorced back in 2019, and going through that was really dark. It was really dark. And I remember going back to really ritualistic behaviors, and I mean like taking cold showers or making the bed in the morning, going to the gym, like these things that were simple and mechanical in a way, but they were enough to carry me through those deep, dark emotions without putting it into like drugs or alcohol or something else, right? There was a need for some coping tool, but I tried to put it into something that was more ritualistic. And so when I was starting out, I did a similar thing where I was doing videos and sharing that journey. And that's kind of evolved into, now we have the tribe and all these other things, the Wake Up with Giants TV. It's interesting that, you know, when we're looking at it, what we're really avoiding is the story or the experience that we're having around those dark emotions. Like a child passes away, there's a lot of grief. I don't want to face the grief.
Yeah.
You feel shame around religion. I don't want to face that. You know, I don't like my job, but I don't want to face it. And so instead we numb out, and we can get through. We can get through a lot of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then it starts to damage our lives, and then there's this point you got to shift it. You're waking up to the idea that this is really damaging my life. Like things are going to fall apart, relationships are going to come apart. It's not working. What comes up as you hear that?
The amount of energy that I put in to all these people were concerned about me after my daughter passed away, right?
Yeah.
They were worried about me. They were always coming to my house. And the amount of energy that I put into, I can't allow these people to see me fall apart. I have to hold it together, to the point of I wasn't willing, or even like, I wasn't willing to even look at the fact that I'm grieving, and that's perfectly okay. You just lost a daughter. You're going to have grief. I felt the pressure of all these people are paying attention to me, and I need to get this attention off of me. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. Look at me. And so I put all this energy into seeming like I was okay. But it really came down to, once I did get off the pills, I still had to face all that grief I had been not facing. And then, avoiding. And then even on top of that, you have all your inner child stuff that comes up that you've been avoiding your whole life.
Yeah.
So it was a really intense, several months for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, Cassie, I can only imagine. I've got 4 kids. I can only imagine the intensity of the grief around that. And then on top of that, trying to hide that, you know, and be the strong one for everybody. So they don't see that you're struggling. And then, you know, coming out of it at some point, like you said, you've got to name your shadows, right? Give them a name, give them a voice. And when you do that, then things start to heal. But as long as we're hiding from it, running from it, being strong, you know, like I can't be weak, that's weakness.
Yes.
Like being strong is opening up and saying, look, I'm not strong. I can't handle this. I'm struggling. And Ryan's doing it right now. You've done it. I've gone through that. And there's power in opening up and being vulnerable. And that's where a lot of us get really strong in our lives. It's like, dude, we have stuff that we hide. And I want to talk about that a little bit. Like when you started to reveal yourself to the world, like what was your experience around that? How was it received?
It was actually received pretty beautifully in the beginning. And that's what that, again, we're going to come back to, we always make up these stories about how we think everyone's going to react.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, and I've come to like realize this so deeply, is when you are met with someone that is being extremely vulnerable, you will feel it in every fiber of your being. You cannot deny the truth of authenticity and vulnerability. So I feel like it was scary for me to put it out there, but something I want to touch on too is shadows. Okay, so how do shadows come into existence? They come into existence because it's something that we reject, it's something that we repress, it's something that we put shame and guilt upon. That's why they become shadows to begin with. So giving a voice to that shadow is really the first step of saying, here it is to the surface. I'm going to get to know this shadow. You're not trying to get rid of it, or like, you're wanting to sit with it and say, I see you.
Yeah, wow.
I feel you. I understand that you're here to teach me a lesson. And I'm going to give you the time, and I'm going to give you the space for you to show me what it is that you're trying to show me. And then all of a sudden that shadow goes from shadow and integrates into your light being and just ignites you. Becomes
an advocate, right? In a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yes.
I love that you talk to your shadow in the third person.
Mm.
You know, it's not, I am this, I am dark, I am worthless, and which is the tendency. People will do that. And they have this story and narrative that says how terrible they are. But it's like, I have these things that I'm hiding. There's these things that are hidden. And you give voice to that, and you start to look at it, and we're going to sit together. We're going to sit on the park bench together. We're going to do whatever and just really have a conversation, a dialogue, and look at this. And then you find out it's not as scary as you thought. It comes out of the shadows and it becomes your friend. And it supports you. It only always supports you. That's the thing. Even the shadow side supports you. Even in your darkest hours, those things served you because there's some sort of payoff that comes from it. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. You know, they're starting to find now that anxiety is more of an addiction than it is a mental illness. And the research is showing that we do it over and over, even though it's harmful or it feels harmful, we keep repeating the patterns because there's a payoff in it. I don't even know where we want to take that, but you know, you can have anxiety or you can have addiction in the things that we call mental illness.
Yeah.
Like depression. You can have addiction to depression. You can have addiction because there's payoff. Does that make sense?
Oh, definitely. It's kind of like, for instance, let's say we're bringing up a shadow or we're bringing up an emotion, and we're gonna sit with that emotion.
Yeah.
This is actually something that I sometimes can fall into, and I'll be in it for a moment. But say that I'm going to sit with the emotion of sadness. Sometimes that sadness, I can feel so good that I allow that sadness to become me instead of to feel it and then release it. And that's where that downward spiral comes, kind of like where you're the addiction of, okay, I'm going to sit in this and I'm going to sulk and I'm going to feel so sorry for myself because I'm so sad and life is so tough. And that's the comfort that it brings you. So I totally get what you're talking about. Yeah.
It's like almost being a martyr in that, you know, with and then the attention that it brings, you get addicted to that attention, or that, you know, even though it's maybe a dark thing that you're doing, brings attention.
Yeah. There's power and vulnerability still. I can be a martyr, recognize that I'm acting like a martyr, and be vulnerable about acting like a martyr, and it takes me out of being a martyr. Right?
I love that we're talking about this, because this is actually something that has just popped up for me in like the last month, where it kind of plays with like people pleasing or the same types of things like that, where you're like, I'm giving myself so fully to you and I'm giving to everybody around me. And it gives you this almost like God complex, if for lack of better words. Yeah.
No, let's do that. Keep going. Yeah.
So it really comes down to, you're giving your power out to all these people. You're playing this martyr role or this God role of you're blessing everyone because you're giving so much of yourself. But really, what is held there is you're not empowered whatsoever. Like, you've given your power to other people and you've given it this like glorious title and crown, when really it is taking everything away from you. So your cup is left empty. You feel awful, but you're addicted to this people pleasing, or martyrship. That is like, it's just a intense role. And just by saying, I've been acting like a martyr and I've been making myself feel like I'm this Christ-like person, but I've been doing it with all these hidden intentions, right? So like, I would be doing these things for people and I'd be like, I'm such a good person, I'm helping these people out, I'm giving so much, but it was totally egoic. It was totally for myself, and it was depleting every part of my energy, my body, and it left me feeling crappy at the end of the day.
Yeah. So just false humility, right? Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm guilty of it. Like,
yes.
I know how to do it very well.
Pretty me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
I'll cover you up for a second. We're throwing up
our shadows. Do you want to read that, Ryan?
Our shadows give us insight. Let's give us insight of our wounds and how we go about facing life in the difficult times. I agree with Cassity. So proud of the brave soul you are to face vulnerability and speak your truth. You know, a lot of this stuff too. I don't know if that I would go around and say, "Look at me. This is what I've done." And so, but at the same time, I would give away my power. I tend to be that direction. I'm a people pleaser. It is a hard thing for me to not. If somebody says, "Can you help me?" Ryan caves most of the time, and then it's usually it's to my own detriment. I'll lose money because of that stuff, or I'll put off everything that I'm supposed to do because of those things. And it's not setting the boundaries that you need to set, and be able to it's okay to do some of that stuff. It's okay to be Christ-like, or to be giving, or to be caring or considerate, if you're taking care of yourself and if you're setting those boundaries up. Otherwise, you're going to be miserable. You're going to be miserable blessing lives. It's the worst. It's almost like the worst kind of hell. And then when you need help and you internally screaming because I need help, or I need love or support or something, somebody to understand what I'm going through, you look around and everybody else is busy in their own stuff and they don't care.
I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you struggle reaching out to others for support and help? Like, do you struggle with giving that a voice?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is so strongly tied to inner child wounds, and this has to do with the fact of when we're being raised, we are taught do everything that these adults, right, our elders, if you will, if they tell us this, yes, like, we're supposed to follow. So we're taught at a very young age to become people pleasers, whether it's to our employer, to our teacher, to our parents, to our friends. And it gives us this like vicious cycle of we're giving, but we're never filling our cup. We're not doing self-care.
Damn giver there is.
Yes. But it leaves us so bitter.
Empty, right?
So I want to pull this up. Hugh hits on a good point here, because boundaries are within ourselves, right? What other people do, they're going to do. And this is so true, because what we're saying is what really aligns for us. Like, what am I willing to do, and what works for me and what doesn't work for me? And people are going to do what they do. And so really controlling the story and the narrative inside of this container is huge, because Ryan, you say, I am a people pleaser. That becomes a narrative. I have a hard time saying no to people becomes a narrative. That even the languaging of I have a hard time is the story you're telling of why you stay where you're at. Right. And so when you tell this story, here's the beauty of the addiction of story, and especially those shadow stories, is that people hear it and they believe you. Nobody questions your story. They don't even think that's a bunch of shit, what you're telling me. Right. They just hear you and they're like, oh man, yeah, I could see that you're right in what you're saying. and you get justified in your story, and there's no change. And so I don't want people to justify my story. I want people to be clear. It's not their responsibility, but to come up and say, your story sucks. Maybe it's time to rewrite that, because are you really a people pleaser? I mean, if we were to really look at it over the life and, look at the graph of Ryan helping and serving people, is he a people pleaser? I would venture to say probably not. I think there's some genuine serving going on, but then there's this narrative that says I'm a people pleaser.
And I think, like, looking into my, the steps that took me to that point, the habits, and it was the praise, it was the wanting to make, I think, well, it wasn't even praise. I think a lot of it was like, to get the love that I wanted and felt like I needed, if I did those things and was the best little helper, right? And gave, that was that Amber just said it, the validation. It was the you're a good kid, you're a good person because you give and you serve and you do those things. Yeah, but I'm freaking miserable and my cup's empty because I'm not filling it for myself, because I'm always giving it away.
Yeah. And the payoff. Yeah, go ahead, Cassity. I cut you off.
No, you're fine. For me, it kind of shows up as like, okay, so you're getting the validation, but really what it boils down to, and this is just from my experience, is that was what I was using as the bar to tell me and to show me that I was worthy. Every time that I got praise, oh, I'm worthy now. But as soon as that praise is stripped away from me, I'm left sitting lonely. I'm left feeling like I'm not worthy of even being here. And it really taps into, like, you have to find your worth outside of what you're doing, right?
I'm in a course right now with a guy named Townsend Wardlaw. Powerful. I think he's a powerful human. He talks about be to do, because we have it backward. We do to be. So we do things so that we can be things, right? If I'm successful in my business, then I will be, a success, right? But the challenge is flipping that around and being to do things. Like, who do you have to be to create the life that you want? And that all starts with the narrative that you're telling, because your story is your reality. It becomes your reality. You keep speaking it. Well, I'm struggling. My mom had a really good story. My dad had passed away when I was 2, and she had 11 kids. And so I heard the story in church every fast Sunday, because there was a payoff. There was a payoff that came with that story. People felt sorry, felt bad for her, and they would come and comfort her and say, it was rewarding. And that story became very rewarding in and of itself. And there was no change, because why would you change a story that works? Do you know what I mean? What comes up as you hear that?
I'm going back to, like, it makes complete sense to me that you would continue to do that, because it's kind of like, you do an action, it gets rewarded. You do an action, it gets rewarded. And I'm kind of wanting to, like, circle back over to where Ryan was talking about his people pleasing. And when we're telling ourselves these stories, right?
Yeah. And
we're stuck in these cycles and we're telling ourselves these stories. Okay, well, if we look at it from an aspect of the universe is working for me, it's never working against me. So we don't need to feel guilty about the stories that we're telling ourselves.
Right.
That's the last thing we need to do.
Sure.
We need to look at what is the story trying to show us? What is the story trying to teach us? And from my perspective in this moment, I feel like it is here to show the boundaries and to teach the boundaries and to explore the boundaries of what makes me feel good, what depletes me, what is my truth, what doesn't feel good. Just going back to like, what is right for you. And the boundaries, it's just like that person had commented, boundaries will always look different for every person. So I might be setting boundaries. I've been setting a whole lot of boundaries this last year. And a lot of people, when you start to set boundaries, if you've been a people pleaser, they're going to be upset with you because they've been violating those boundaries that you're bringing in. So you're going to lose people. It is a painful experience to start doing boundaries. It's very, very hard. It made me start cringing when I first started doing it. I would find, like, shortness of breath. I would get panicky. But the more and more I practiced setting those boundaries and like giving my boundaries a voice, the easier it got, the better I felt, the less depleted I was, the more empowered I was.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hear in boundaries, like we use that phrase and it's almost cliche to say boundaries. Oh, I got boundaries, or they cross my boundaries, and he's a narcissist and she's a narcissist, and all these labels and boundaries. Right. And it's really like owning your voice. Like the honesty means to own your truth. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, when I hear the word boundary, all I'm hearing is that a person, their relative boundary, whatever that is owning their truth. And
I love that.
they're stepping into it, right? They're not allowing others to kind of rule what their truth is. So it's really, to me, it's more than a boundary. It's more of aligning yourself with your own truths and speaking those, not hiding them anymore. I kind of hear in your story, Cassity, that you got to a point where you're like, I need to give voice to this, to your voice, nobody else's. Like, I need Cassity's voice, right? And as soon as you started giving Cassity a voice, and we call it the shadow, you say you gave your shadow a voice, but it was the hidden parts of Cassity that you gave a voice. And when the moment you did that, you got empowered and you had support, and things started to align for your life to turn it around. I mean, am I off in that?
No, I actually think that is a golden perspective. Like when you turn it in that way, because boundaries can be so like tossed around, but
Yeah.
you can't deny your truth. And that's where it comes back to the vulnerability or the authenticity. You feel it in every fiber of your being. You will radiate it out of yourself and like shine it outward. And every time that we go along our day, no matter if it's we're stopping at the grocery store, or we're working, or we're with friends, you're going to impact people. They're going to feel that authenticity, and it's going to encourage them to step into their truth, whatever that looks like for them. Yeah.
Yeah. Ryan, what's coming up?
I was just thinking about like energy exchange.
Yeah.
It could be a nonverbal nothing. I mean, you just there's vibrations, right, with energy, and we've noticed this in the tribe and what we're doing, Nick, with the giants and the smalls and everything that we're doing is as we started to grow and stretch and live authentically and do the best that we could inside of this. We didn't know how we didn't see this. We didn't see an interview with Cassity Norris, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. We didn't even see anything close to this.
I mean, the book was published a year ago today. I mean,
it wasn't even in print. And now it exists. And here we are, 81 episodes deep, several hundred pieces of content on YouTube, thousands and thousands of posts, thousands of members, involved. I don't know how many thousands of people have been indirectly impacted because of that, but that there's this energy and this vibration that starts attracting, and like I said it to you, it's radiating. People, you could just be in a room and the energy level rises. That's powerful. When you know who you are and you're living authentic, that's why I said the courage to, like, it takes courage, because you got to stretch and grow into that and have that courage to shave the head, right? And to go into work and to face that, give the shadows the voice and bring it to the light. There's just some serious power that comes from doing that. It's opposite of what the fear tells you. It's absolutely opposite. And guess what? The whole time, you're worthy. You're worthy. I did a post on Thor and Fat Thor, right? Remember when Thor got lazy and I don't know if anybody watched Avengers, and if you haven't, I'm sorry. This is going to be a little bit of a spoiler, so shut it off if you haven't seen it. But Fat Thor doesn't kill Thanos like he thought. He came in with a hammer, hit him right in the chest, or the axe went into his chest, and Thor and Thanos pretended to die, but Thor didn't really do it. He was supposed to go for the head apparently, and he didn't kill him. and then bad things happened. And Thor blamed it on himself. And he went and he talked to his mom, and he got and she, being super wise, talked to him about his potential, and that she loved him still, and that, you know, the future hadn't been real kind to him because he was Fat Thor at the moment, but she still saw his potential inside and gave him a little I don't know, little boost. And he reaches out his hand. I can't, it'll miss my screen. Reaches out his hand for his hammer, and he kind of shakes a little bit. He's like, sometimes it takes a second, and the hammer comes back, and he says, I'm still worthy. And I think about that as you go through your journey, and you have these dark parts or these shadows or these things, the fears that make you seem like you're unworthy. Maybe you've done things, you know, the sex, the drugs, the you know, it could be anything. Lying, stealing, cheating, whatever. But you give that voice to those shadows, and I'm speaking to myself 100% right here and rambling. So this is my therapy. But you give that voice and you expose those things and share, you will find the most support and the most empowering feeling that you've ever felt in your life. It's so freeing. The shackles fall off, and the weight that you've carried for all that time, it's almost like, you know, it's like this, it's a physical, you feel it. And then you can just be you. You don't have to be anybody else anymore. You just be freaking Thor. You know? You don't have to be who everyone else thinks you have to be. You just be you.
So as I hear that, I think of the journey that each of us has to go through. And some people never share their story. They never get vulnerable. They never talk about it. They never align with their truth. And sometimes it takes a really impactful experience to really align with that truth. Something happens, right? You know, somebody passes away, like your daughter passed away. That was impactful. You had to decide what you want to do with that. I got divorced. It was impactful. I had to decide what I want to do with that. Ryan, you're going through things you got to decide what you're going to do with. And a lot of people just hold that in and they don't talk about it. And so it starts to show up in their world, because in their internal story is, I can't handle it. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. And that becomes a dialogue, and it shows up in their languaging and their acting. And then it becomes their reality. And so, like, when, you know, Cassity, I want to dive back into your story here. Is like, you were going through this darkness, and you come out of it and you start sharing your story. And not only are you empowering yourself, you're empowering others. Like, you're starting to align with your own truth, and you're showing other people like they can do the same thing. And did you find that to be true?
Oh, 100%. I felt like all these people that I had around me my whole life, right? It just never felt comfortable. And as soon as I started to go into my vulnerability, it started to pull in my soul tribe, if you will. The people who resonated, the people who felt my heart, the people who were meant to share the journey together, because we all have our own medicine that we bring to the table. So each one of these people that come into my soul tribe or come into my awareness, they're bringing pieces of medicine that I need in that moment of my journey. And I find that it's that energy exchange where I'm going to give them something from myself, and they're going to give it back to me. Yeah. And that equal exchange of energy is just breathtaking.
Huh.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at, you know, your start point to where you are today, you've evolved in so many ways. The path would be unfamiliar. It wasn't a straight line. Is that accurate?
Very much so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably a little messy, a little chaotic some days.
Messy most of the time, let's be honest.
And so now, you know, looking forward at your vision from here, like, you have this event coming up Is that right? The Cosmic Heart Festival on
Yes.
Facebook, and we'll post that here. We'll talk a little bit about that, but I want to talk about some of your wisdom. Like, what would you advise somebody that's maybe going through a similar path that you are, or that you did, and they're starting out on that journey? What would you share with them to kind of help them on that path?
I would share with them that it is vital to be around people who are going to be able to support you on your journey. The last thing that you need when you're coming out with whatever secrets or whatever shame or whatever guilt you've been carrying is other people to criticize or to judge. So really being aware of like the energies that are around you. And if these people are making you feel shameful or guilty, those aren't the people that you need to go to rely on you, to pull you up and lift you up and help you see your worth.
Yeah.
You need people who can see you at your highest self, like you're already there, and that can hold that space for you ultimately, because the power of being able to hold space for someone is so juicy. So just finding those people that are able to hold that space for you and hold that vision of you at your highest self already, and then cheer you on every step of the way, saying, you got this, we believe in you, we see you.
Yeah.
It really comes down to the support, and you need that energy of the higher self, and not the criticizing and not the judgment.
What I would love to see is more people doing what you're talking about, what Ryan's doing. The journey that I went through is to really open up your journey, share your journey, not from the space of people need to fix you. Like, that's not the goal. The goal is to just share the journey. And, I look at a lot of us hide behind memes. I want to make sure I post the right meme, right? Or the right video, because then that adds value. It's like, get authentic, get out there and show your vulnerable side. What's really going on for you inside? Is your life a mess? Great. Share it. Let's talk about it. Let's turn the light on and really bring that into the light and talk about it. Let's look at that thing you're holding on to, that story. There's power in that. As I'd love to see more of that in our community. We got a lot of memes on there. They're awesome. But I can find memes everywhere. I want to see people who are taking a journey. Like, memes are great, share them, but what's going on for you?
Yeah, and then have tribe members and people come in and support and share their experience, so that then it can impact other people's lives and say, oh man, like I know that fear says that you're alone. Fear says that you're unworthy, you're not smart, you're stupid, you're this, you're that, whatever it is. That's what that tells you. Like, it's not true, but we believe it, and because we think we're the only ones going through it, or we're ashamed or whatever. But when you see somebody else share it and bring those shadows to the light and give them that voice, like Cassity talked about, you go, holy crap, that person, like, I get it. I feel it. That's why I was like, who relates to this? This guy. Because your story helps other people to find the courage and to move in through, have courage to move through the fear and start that process for themselves. It's powerful.
If I can add one more thing.
Please. Just one, though.
Okay. Just one.
There's no limit.
I would like to speak to anybody that is watching this, that is like in this cycle of suffering and of fear. And if they can just take that leap of faith to have that courage, that little sliver of courage, and do their first live video on Facebook or however that vulnerability wants to show up for you. After they do that, they're going to be shown all that support and all that love, and it's only going to encourage them to continue to bloom and to blossom. And another side of this is, every time we share and we're vulnerable, you're going to help so many people that you don't even have any idea are out there, right? So knowing that if I share this story, I could help one person that is sitting in this struggle. That is so powerful.
I like that. How do people find you? Tell us about your event.
So we have the Cosmic Hearts Festival, and this is going to be on Facebook. It's a 3-day event. There's over 30 like intuitive healers and all sorts of fun games and raffles. This is going towards sorry, let me look at my notes real quick.
Yeah,
I get nervous.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is like
oh wait, you're
you've done
human.
so many lives, right?
Yeah.
So many
Yeah.
things, and that still kind of comes up sometimes for us, right? It's
Oh,
okay.
totally. Yeah, totally.
It's all good. So do we. We stumble through our words all the time, and we just go with it. It's cool.
Yeah.
No fear.
So this is for a little girl named Emery. She's 7 years old, and she has cerebral palsy. So this is any of the money that's raised during this 3-day event is going to go towards her surgeries that she's going to be getting. And like I said, this will be on Facebook. So there's a group that you can find on there. As far as what I do and ways to find my content, I am at the Zen Den, Utah, and I'm on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. So that is my spiel.
That's perfect. We like the spiel.
Hey.
Yeah. And on that page, can they donate straight from the page then if they want to go in there and to the Cosmic Heart Festival, right? And
they cannot yet, but I'll actually set that up tonight. So yes,
yeah, let's do that. So just in case, somebody just wants to donate, then there's a way for them to, for that to be received, because that's a great cause. I'd like to donate. So set that up, and when you get that set up, just shoot me a message, and then I'll promote it too, and do whatever I can to help in that regard. And
thank you.
I love what you're doing. I love everything about you. I'm so proud of you. And I know you don't need to hear this, like you did it, and you did it for you, but I'm proud of you for stepping into your giant potential and then sharing it with us, because it elevates everybody. Rising tide lifts all ships. It's that I don't know, there's magic in it, and I believe in magic, and you are doing it, and just so proud to be your friend and to watch your journey. And if there's anything that we can do to support or promote, we'd love to do it. And if you have anybody in your life too that would want to pop in here and share with others as well, that you feel is a fit for the show, pass it along to us. We'd love to invite them and share their story as well. So
awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on.
It has been beautiful. It has been exciting. It has been a little bit nerve-wracking, but ultimately it's been really great. So thank you.
You're welcome. Everybody who's watching, thanks for watching. Keep doing giant things. Go out there, change the world. Change yourself. That'll change the world. So change your story that you're telling, because that's where it all begins. And continue to do great things. We'll see you in the next video.
Love you too.